Thank you, Commissioner, for coming to Greece and for coming to the DEFEA conference. Allow me to start our discussion from the war in Iran and the overall developments in the Middle East, the US strategy, which, as all we're witnessing, affects European defense strategy, along with the war in Ukraine. So what is your overall vision for Europe defense under these developments?
Well, first of all, really, thanks a lot for inviting. It's a big pleasure and honor. Definitely, first of all, what we need to understand, what you named, in what environment we're living now.
Yes.
And definitely we can very clearly say about three types of threats or challenges. And we can start from the war in Iran and what is happening now around Middle East, and definitely this region, Cyprus, Greece, are very close to this conflict zone. And that is what we need to have in mind. That there are real security threats to European Union member states, and it's not very clear how it will go on, all that conflict. And in addition to that, also we need to understand that if till now, we as Europeans were buying around 40% of our defense equipment from the United States, now, if we are looking into the numbers, how much stockpiles of the United States were depleted in this war exchange, it's obvious that looking in the next several years, supplies from the United States of any weapons which we need to have perhaps will be more complicated. Second challenge, of course, and threat is in the East, the Russian war against Ukraine, and as all the different intelligence services of different EU member states are predicting that Russia can be ready very soon to start new aggression against, this time against EU or NATO member states. That's again what we need to have in mind. And the last point, of course, is what we can see from United States, different strategic documents like National Defense Strategy or so-called NATO 3.0 strategy. Americans really have some rational arguments why they're asking us, Europeans, to take primary role on European defense into our hands, at least in conventional defense. They will stay with secondary role because they see the need really to shift more and more of their attention towards Indo-Pacific or Western Hemisphere. So that is environment. Now, all that environment demands from us defense readiness. And when we're talking about defense readiness, again, we need to see very clearly what does it mean. So last year, we spent quite a lot of our attention to what I call material defense readiness pillar. We did a lot of decisions about the finances, about production, about capability targets, and so on and so on. But we should not forget that besides material defense readiness pillar, there is very important institutional defense readiness pillar, where, President was speaking about Article 42.7, how we are organizing ourselves, how we are organizing mutual assistance. Then all the leaders are speaking about the need to strengthen the European pillar of NATO. Again, we need to have very clear vision, what does it mean? And also, we need to look how we are going to develop what we can call European Defense Union as both, much more, as some kind of institutional arrangement which would bring much more of unity inside of European Union, but also which would allow us to have partnership, defense partnership with other European countries like United Kingdom, like Norway, and especially Ukraine, which we understand what kind of battle-tested experience they have, which would be very much needed to strengthen all our defense. So that is the whole picture. And here, I would say there are countries which are showing very good example how to do and what to do in such circumstances. And I think that Greece is one of those inspirational countries with your defense developments, with 4% invested into defense this year, with Achilles shield as really very impressive air defense plans, and also this 12 years plan for 25 billion euros, if I'm correct. So that is really what can be a good example to all of the European Union member states and very good inspiration.
So you gave us the whole description of your vision and the three challenges, as you said. I would like to elaborate a little bit more. Take into account that we still depend to a large extent on the technological efficiency of American defense companies, and the corresponding European ones are capable of covering at the same level the industrial defense readiness. For example, we have the production ramp up and the supply chains. So I would like to ask you about the comparison of these European and American companies.
Well, I would say, first of all, that and in my discussions with our transatlantic partners, we agreed that on both sides of transatlantic, we are facing very similar challenges, that the lack of production capacities to produce in a very rapid way what we need to have. So Americans now have the problems that they need to replenish their stockpiles. We have the problem on our side how to really to achieve very strategic goal to outproduce Russia. Because at the moment, really, I see as a big challenge for us that Russia is quite heavily still outproducing us with their war economy, with all those years of the war in Ukraine. And those numbers really, if to look at least from public sources, what we see, really are worrying me. Because in my view, exactly production numbers are one of the most important factors which can deter possibility of aggression. And when I see that, for example, last year, at least again, I am telling about public numbers, that last year Russia produced around 1,200 cruise missiles, and majority of them were sent to attack Ukraine. And when I see, and we were traveling with my team through this, what we call missile tour, visiting different production facilities in Europe. And in Europe, we produced last year less than 300 cruise missiles. So Russians produced 1,200, we produced 300. So it's a big difference. What we can take into as an example, again, I will not say anything very special and new. We can take as an example and inspiration Ukraine. Ukraine last year started to produce their own cruise missiles, the famous Flamingo, and this year they are ready to produce 700. What is an issue and what is a challenge for us? And I see the same discussions in the United States, and our industries are starting to understand. And industries are saying that till now they were producing what they call haute couture production. Very, technologically very advanced, high-level technologies, very expensive and very difficult to scale up. And the need is really to shift more of our attention towards good enough production, which is, not so, how to say, excellent in technologies, but it's good enough. It's cheaper and it's much easier to ramp up production. So that is what we need to do. Now, also with the United States, what we need to look, really how to use our established industrial relations, maybe to look for new possibilities for co-production, for licensing production, in order really to achieve much more rapid scale-up of our production and really to outproduce, first of all, Russia.
Now, I would like to ask you a little bit about the European pillar of NATO. We heard before the president of Cyprus and active president of European Council saying that he disagrees with the remarks of the Secretary General of NATO that he made about the NATO relationship with the US. So I would like to ask you if you think that a European NATO is possible and under which circumstances?
Well, Definitely, we need to take into account what I said, and what I was discussing recently with our partner, from Washington, D.C., with Undersecretary of War, Elbridge Colby, who famously announced back in Brussels during NATO Council the so-called NATO 3.0 strategy, where he said that till now we are living with NATO 2.0, where we Europeans were a little bit, enjoying that our transatlantic partners are taking, bigger responsibility on European defense. Now things are, need to be different, to start to be different, which means that really we need to be ready to take that, responsibility, primary responsibility on European defense on our shoulders, with Americans staying with secondary responsibility. Now, what does it mean? It means that really we need to strengthen NATO as such, with much stronger European pillar of NATO, being, autonomous, able to autonomously act and defend the European continent. And of course, that will mean also that NATO internal structures perhaps also will need to adapt to that. There are a lot of different discussions about Europeization of NATO structures in Europe and so on. And we need to be ready for that. Also, we need to be ready to replace those American resources which now are providing really very crucial services to us and which can start to diminish. First of all, strategic enablers, now including space, and again, I can here, praise Greece developments, recent developments, and the new satellites recently, launched into the space. But also, we need to be ready to ask ourselves how we shall replace around 80,000 or 100 American troops, which are playing now on European continent, which are playing the role of rapid reaction force. So those questions are coming, and the leaders are starting to discuss, and this is where really this institutional defense readiness perhaps will be one of the very much debated topic among European leaders.
And my last question, since we are in Greece, you have several bilateral meetings. You know that Greece's security concerns are not abstract. According to the European Commission's progress report, Turkey is not fully aligned with the EU foreign policy. So, to your opinion, to your estimation, how can Turkey become part of the European defense architecture and participate in the European defense frameworks?
Well, perhaps there are several different things, Well, I absolutely agree with the minister who was saying that really doors should be open for, bilateral improvement of the relations. I was very much impressed by your Prime Minister last year's speech in the United Nations General Assembly, where he was speaking very, optimistically about, possibility. Definitely, it depends also on another side, how much Turkey wants to improve that relationship. But that is very important, especially when things are becoming, tense around in general, not in bilateral, only in bilateral relations, but in general with the war in Iran, with Middle East and so on. So we need to remember that all of us in Europe, we are, members of the European Union, but also, majority of us were also members of NATO. And NATO provides us collective defense. And both Greece and Turkey are members of NATO. So that brings some kind of additional,
collaboration.
Yeah, and challenge how really to have good understanding, being part of the same collective defense structure.
Commissioner, thank you so much for our discussion. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you.